Okay guys, moving on to a Zero Hedge article, 30th of October, Tyler Durden, titled, quote, China's debt has grown $4.5 trillion in the past 12 months, more than the US, Japan and Europe combined. Let's just put this in context of the astronomical US debt. And we know that that is floating around 19.5 trillion. So in the last year, China is plus minus 25% of total US debt in only 12 months. So that is basically telling you that they are printing to oblivion. They are flooding Chinese yuan into the markets to sustain them and prevent them from collapsing. And you just have to understand that on a compound interest ratio, that this is a ludicrous amount of ones and zeros having to be created on a computer screen to balance the books, which is impossible. And this is obviously only official released figures. And we know it's never even accurate. They always underestimate or represent the figures to make them appear not quite so bad. But if they are underestimating it at 4.5, it makes no difference if it's 4.5 or 450 trillion. It's the same. It's unpayable. It's unserviceable. And that this whole thing leads to only one outcome, which is a hyperinflation mode, where the monetary value of you going out, working, and earning the same money that you have earned, the same currency you have earned year on year, because not many people get pay rises. So while the currency is increasing in M1 supply, the products that you buy are increasing higher than what you can afford in ratio to your earnings. And as we know, one way that the governments hide this increasing goods value is via the CPI, Consumer Price Indexes, where they basket together goods that the average so-called family buys. Example being, a manipulation inside the CPI index is like an LCD TV that they put in there, believing that we buy a TV every year, knowing full well that we don't. However, it is seen as one of the crucial points to include in this index. But we know that technology increases month on month. Things become faster, things become cheaper. New processors, new technologies get implemented at faster and faster rates, bringing down the cost of the consumer goods. But things like food are removed from so-called indexes to hide the effect of inflation. So what does this go on to say? While concerns about China's debt load, capital flows, and depreciating currencies have been pushed to the back burner in recent months, perhaps facilitated by a welcome rebound in global inflation, perceived by markets and global central bankers that monetary policy is working, it is worth a quick reminder of how we got here. First, a quick trip through memory lane to remind us how much has changed in just the past year. In a note by Morgan Stanley's Chetan Ahar, released on Sunday, the strategist reminds us that a little more than a year ago, the global economy was facing intense disinflationary pressures. Global commodity prices were declining significantly, and the slowdown in China and other major commodity producing emerging markets had led to some concerns that it could pull developed markets into recession and drag inflation down along with it. At the same time, in China, producer prices fell by almost 6%, and the regime change in its currency management approach meant that China was no longer absorbing disinflationary pressures from abroad. And while this seems like a distant memory today, thanks to China, which has played a pivotal role in driving the global inflation cycle, this time on the upside. As the cycle recoveries both lifted China's own inflation and transmitted it globally. Here is how this happened. The recovery in China has been driven by yet another round of debt indulgence. Debt in China has grown by 4.5 trillion US dollars over the past 12 months, by far the highest amount of debt creation globally, as compared to 2.2 trillion US dollars and 870 billion US dollars in Japan, and only 550 billion dollars in the euro area. Indeed, China on its own has added more debt than the US, Japan, and the euro area combined. While we have shown the IIF's forecast of China's debt countless times in recent months, here it is once again to put China's unprecedented debt expansion in context. And as you can see, guys, it's an exponential growth, because that is what happens with debt, unserviceable debt. It's impossible to pay it off unless a revaluation takes place to clear the books. And that's why we are working with understanding why gold, silver, and bitcoins are going to be a higher valued asset, commodity class than what they currently are. Because how else can you reset a system? You can't just reset a system to zero because the powers that be decide it. Because the people will think, well, why is there any value in the thing in the first place if all you can do is reset it? You've collected everything that you want, and we've ended up poor with nothing. Whereas if you introduce, oh guys, we've found this great way we can fix the system, because yeah, we've got a bit of a problem. If subject to obviously what happens with politicians, who gets into power, what happens there, they have a get out clause of being able to reset the markets regardless. Because time and time again, history shows us that fiat currencies don't work. Yet the stupid masses keep on believing that worthless toilet paper fiat currencies have value. Fiat currencies are even dirtier than used toilet paper. Carrying on. Furthermore, as we noted last week, for the first time, Chinese domestic debt liabilities crossed the 200 trillion yen threshold, just shy of $20 trillion. This has been driven primarily as a result of the exponential increase in Chinese corporate debt, which has grown from 4.5 trillion in 2008 to over $17 trillion as of 2016, even as Chinese GDP growth has been cut in half from 12% to 6%, as trillions in non-performing loans, by some estimates as much as 20% of total loans, clog up the debt growth transmission machinery. And that's all it is, guys. It's the slowdown inside the Chinese economy needed boosting, otherwise it was going to collapse. And that's all that quantitative easing is. It's just to prop the markets up to prevent them from failing. And we see that on a global scale. So the story in this debt cycle doesn't stop expanding until people believe their money, their currencies, their investments, their deposits in banking systems either get wiped, become worthless, or can no longer keep up with the inflation values. That's the time that people wake up and realize, hey guys, shit, something's going on here. Why the hell can't I buy a pint of milk for the same price I did last week? Why is it now 5 times the price? Why has my wages not gone up 5 times? And then everybody has slipped into a poverty situation. So we'll leave that one there because it's pretty self-explanatory, guys. Just a huge expansion in Chinese debt in order to prevent them from being the first mega nation to collapse. So they're basically buying time to see what happens inside the rest of the global markets. What is going to be the situation in America? So all eyes are on this election. China wants to be the transition phase. So to keep that transition in mind, with the gold-backed yuan, moving into the SDR baskets, trying to get a foothold into this new dominant change of monetary policy. Again, not long to wait and see what happens.